My ex-husband and his new wife decided they wanted custody of my little girl after vanishing from her life for 8 whole months. I'm 33 and I was married to a guy named Mark for 8 years. He's 39 now and we split up about a year ago because he admitted that for roughly 3 years he had been cheating on me with some old girlfriend from his college days. It blindsided me completely, especially since we had a 4-year-old daughter at the time, so that means he kept this affair going even after our child was born. That was just beyond anything I could forgive, and we agreed to get a divorce. I chose to raise our daughter on my own, and just a few months after the divorce he went ahead and married that same ex-girlfriend, a woman named Brenda who was 38. I only found out they got married because some of her friends told me, since obviously Mark and I didn't keep in touch anymore. I managed to get full custody of our daughter, and Mark was only allowed to visit on weekends and even then only when I was present. But after his wedding he completely stopped showing up, and honestly I was fine with that. It meant no more awkward silence while he tried to play with our little girl, and I sat in the other room biting my tongue so I wouldn't throw him out. During the divorce he had come over on a few weekends and I let him because our daughter enjoyed spending time with him. But once he disappeared I didn't bother to reach out. Since the divorce it's been almost a year, and the last time I saw him was around 8 months ago if I remember right. All that time I was just working and taking care of my child because that's really all I have going on in my life right now. But last weekend Mark suddenly showed up at my daughter's place, and we had one of the most tense conversations I've had in a long time. When I opened the door I figured he wanted to see his daughter.
Instead, he said he needed to talk to me, which felt weird because we'd had no reason to speak for nearly a year. Still, I let him say whatever he had to say. And then he told me that his wife Brenda was going to take me to court if I didn't hand over full custody of my daughter to them soon. According to her, because I'm a single mom, I can't give my child the kind of life they could provide. So she claims I'm basically robbing my daughter of a normal childhood. She even thinks that counts as neglect, and right there on my doorstep Mark is demanding I hand my child over to them immediately. So basically he told me they were going to start legal proceedings soon because according to his wife, I wasn't capable of raising our daughter on my own. And I just lost it when I heard that, slammed the door right in his face, and told him to get lost unless he wanted me to call the cops. I couldn't believe he seriously thought he could just show up after almost a year of ignoring his own child and demand I hand her over. I wasn't even worried about Brenda's threats because they were ridiculous. She couldn't just sue me for neglect simply because I'm a single mom. That's complete nonsense. I wasn't scared of the legal side of it. What I was scared of was Mark showing up again and reminding my little girl that he existed. It had taken me so much effort to help her move on without telling her the full truth, and I couldn't go through that all over again with her. I hated the thought of him having any kind of access to me at all, because the things he said last time were honestly creepy. And what scared me even more was how he didn't seem to realize just how messed up his request actually was. So I decided to move in with my parents for a while until I could feel safe again. It made sense because our nanny could also take a couple days off, and 2 days after Mark first showed up, I packed up and went to stay at my parents' place. I've been living there since. After that, he didn't contact me again until the day before yesterday, when he showed up at my parents' house. He knew that was the only other place I could be. But now that my mom and dad were with me, I felt a lot more confident and ready to stand my ground against him. My daughter was sound asleep at the time with my mom upstairs watching her. So even if I raised my voice, she wouldn't hear anything and I could say whatever I wanted. He looked upset and told me they weren't going to take me to court after all. And even if they wanted to, they couldn't. But he still felt it was unfair that I ended up with full custody just because he cheated. Then he admitted that the real reason he came back that day was because both he and Brenda felt a sort of emptiness without my daughter in their lives. And even though Brenda isn't her biological mother, she had apparently spent time with her back when they were together. When Mark used to take her daughter out for walks, they would often meet up with Brenda. So over time, they started seeing themselves as her parents too, and Brenda honestly believed she could be a great stepmom if only I'd give her a chance to prove it. Mark said it was unfair of me to push for full custody, knowing he had no realistic shot at joint custody since our daughter was still so young, and on top of that, he had been cheating on me for 3 straight years before finally admitting it. One of the main reasons he didn't get joint custody was because of his job, which demanded long hours and constant travel. He was often working late in the night or away on business trips, meaning he just didn't have the time to be the one personally caring for a child. And as for Brenda, I barely even knew her, so she couldn't possibly claim custody regardless of her relationship with Mark. The most his lawyer could secure for him was visitation rights, and I can't see how that's somehow my fault. He took away his own chances at shared custody when he chose to cheat. His affair played a huge part in the court's decision, and after the divorce, he basically gave up and agreed that I would have full custody, so I honestly have no idea why he's trying to pin any of this on me now. He said all he wanted was to reconnect with his daughter, that Brenda wanted the same thing, and that's why they came asking for another shot. He tried to convince me it would be good for my daughter in the long run if I let them have another chance at being in her life. He even warned me that I'd regret it if I didn't allow them to rebuild that relationship now, because one day my daughter might ask why her father wasn't allowed to be a part of her life, and then all the blame would land on me. So according to him, I should give them the opportunity to build normal connections with her. He insisted that despite his cheating, he had always been a good father, and Brenda was desperate to at least see her one more time. In that moment, I didn't even know what to say, but I knew for sure that I wasn't comfortable with them being anywhere near my daughter. I have zero trust in either of them on a personal level. My husband betrayed me and lied to me for 3 years straight, and I still haven't forgiven him, and Brenda was an accomplice to that lie the entire time. So after everything they did, their request to be part of my daughter's life just felt completely absurd to me. I don't know if I handled it the right way, but I told Mark again that the past can't be changed, and it's time for him to accept that our daughter is no longer his. He'd been gone from her life for 8 whole months, and it was incredibly hard for me to explain to her why her dad wasn't around. I'm not about to go through that again, just because he and Brenda suddenly decided they want to play house and pretend to be parents. Then I told him to leave again and slammed the door. He walked off, but ever since then he hasn't stopped, blowing up my phone with messages begging me to give them a chance. He keeps repeating that our daughter needs him just as much as she needs me, and that I'm going to regret my decision when she grows up and gets angry at me for shutting him out now. It's gotten to the point where I've started doubting myself, wondering if I'm wrong for not letting them be a part of her life after my ex cheated on me and erased us from his for 8 months. But after thinking it over, I realized I was crazy to even consider letting him back in. I guess it happened because emotions were running high at the time, so I made the choice not to allow him back into our lives, and I'm standing by that. Update 1. I decided I'm not letting him back into our lives. I was out of my mind to even consider it, but I think that happened because I was caught up in a whirlwind of emotions at the time. Update 2. Hey, so it's been 3 days since the last update, and today Mark sent me an email explaining why he decided to come back into our lives after all those months. And honestly, even for him, this is completely insane. I don't know exactly what he and Brenda have been up to, but I'm glad I've already spoken with my lawyer, and I'm one step ahead because a couple of things he wrote in there are at the very least seriously concerning. In the letter, he told me that after our divorce was finalized, Brenda told him she didn't want him talking to me anymore, so he gave up custody of her daughter and decided to focus on his new family life with her. The reason they broke up back in college was because she was always way too family-oriented, and he wanted a woman with big ambitions who didn't just want to get married and have kids. But over time, they both changed, and when they ran into each other a couple of years ago at a college reunion, they realized they had made a mistake breaking up and started an affair. She left the guy she was with at the time, and Mark claims he was planning to tell me everything. But by the time he worked up the nerve, I was already pregnant, and the longer he put off telling me, the harder it got. Eventually, even Brenda started to feel attached to our daughter. Everything got too tangled up, and he just let it go on for 3 years until one day he realized that what he was doing was complete garbage, and that if he didn't straighten himself out, he'd be living a lie for the rest of his life. So he confessed to me. We got divorced, and he completely gave up custody because he wanted to dedicate himself fully to being a good husband to Brenda. Unfortunately, over time, they realized Brenda still wanted a family, but now she was too old to get pregnant without risking her health. So they decided instead of trying for a child of their own, they could just ask me to let them co-parent the child Mark already had. And that's why he came to me that day, when he realized he couldn't scare me into giving up my daughter. He switched to a less aggressive but more manipulative tactic, and that didn't work either. Now, this is pretty much his last shot to just come clean with me and hope I can somehow understand whatever twisted reasons they think they had. He wrote that Mandy had already started feeling like she was my daughter's mom sometimes when the 3 of them were together and I wasn't around, and now she just wants to go back to living that kind of life again. And according to him, the only person who can make that happen is me. That's the pitch they're trying to sell me. Please give us the family we always dreamed of. I gotta admit, it takes a ridiculous amount of self-confidence and straight-up nerve to send a letter like that to the woman whose life you both blew up. They lied to me and cheated on me for 3 years, including while I was pregnant, and now they really think I'm going to be kind enough to put their feelings first and let them have a relationship with the kid they tossed out of their lives like some unwanted toy less than a year ago. And suddenly it hits them that Mandy's too old to have a baby now, but they still want a family. They could have done anything else. They could have adopted a child or gone the surrogacy route. But nope, instead, they went with the dumbest possible idea and tried to guilt me into handing over the daughter they didn't care about. We're talking about my child here, not some dress or gadget you pass around when you're done with it. I always knew they were both out of their minds, but this is a whole new level even for Peter and Mandy. I'm just glad I already spoke to my lawyer and forwarded her that letter, because the whole thing is pure comedy at this point. The fact that they honestly believe I'd ever agree to something like this is so insane, I can't even wrap my head around it. It takes a special kind of crazy to show up to the woman you both betrayed and throw out a request this stupid and disconnected from reality. I'm just thankful my daughter is still too young to understand any of this, because I wouldn't even know how to explain it to her. I can't even make sense of it myself. If this wasn't happening to me, I genuinely want to know what was going on inside my ex-husband's and Mandy's heads when they came up with this plan. It's complete madness. Right now, my only priority is making sure my little girl and I are safe and okay, because who knows what these people might try next. I don't trust them one single bit, and after that letter, they've proven beyond any doubt that they can't be trusted at all. Update number 3 yesterday, my attorney, Melissa, got in touch with Jason and told him that the paperwork to terminate his parental rights had already been filed and that he needed to sign it as soon as possible. Otherwise, there would be another custody trial, and nobody wanted to go through that mess again. Naturally, he didn't take the news well then today. Just a couple hours ago, Jason showed up at my parents' place with his girlfriend Tiffany. Right when I was about to head out for work, I told them to get off our property, or I'd call the cops. They did step out onto the street, but they were ridiculously stubborn. Tiffany told me I was ruining my daughter's future because, according to her, everybody knows I can't possibly raise her on my own, and that I'm being selfish by taking away her one chance at having a real family. I can't even explain how insulting and wrong that was on so many levels. What is that even supposed to mean? I completely lost it and started yelling at her because her words pushed me over the edge. This is the same woman who completely wrecked my life, and she has no right to tell me what my daughter needs or what a family is. She destroyed a perfectly happy home, and my husband gladly went along with it. And now they suddenly want to play happy family with my little girl. Even someone locked in a psych ward would see how insane that sounds, and yes, I am more than capable of raising my daughter alone. I've got a job, and I make enough to live well and give her the life she deserves. So financially, I'm not worried. Maybe someday I'll get married again, and she'll have a stepdad. But right now, she's got everything she needs with just me. Besides, they're the ones who cut her out of their lives for an entire year because she didn't matter to them back then. And now, suddenly, I'm not a good enough mother simply because they've decided they want her back. They're both so unbelievably clueless. It actually hurts my brain to think about it. I told them to leave because I was already running late for work, but Tiffany decided to throw a tantrum right in the middle of the street. She literally sat down in the road and announced that I wasn't going anywhere until I let her see my daughter, and that she wasn't moving until I agreed to her demands. That whole scene was absolutely insane. I told Jason to take her away, but that fool just plopped himself right down next to her. And if I hadn't been so furious, I probably would have burst out laughing. Luckily, my dad could see I was at the breaking point and finally decided to call the cops to have them removed by force. All we could do was sit there and wait for the officers to show up, and even then they kept arguing with us and threatening to stage some kind of protest against me because supposedly I was deliberately robbing my daughter of a happy life. That word robbing always set me off because as far as I know, I've done everything in my power to give my little girl the best life possible, and I'm sure when she grows up she'll appreciate that I never let her unhinged father interfere with raising her. And honestly, who's to say she'd even be safe with him? For all I know, they could actually try to kidnap her and disappear if they wanted. They've already proven they don't give a damn about anyone but themselves. I told them exactly what I thought of them, but they just kept insisting I was only Keeping them away out of some personal grudge, well, of course, anyone in my shoes would probably feel the same way. They're the ones who wreck my personal life. So yeah, it's pretty fair to say I've got a vendetta going here. The shouting match went on for quite a while until the police finally showed up and hauled them away, and even then they still didn't seem to realize they were acting like complete lunatics. They just kept threatening to come back and swearing they wouldn't let me keep them away from their granddaughter anymore, and that honestly scared me on a whole new level. I decided to stay home because after that stunt, my paranoia went through the roof. I also filed for a restraining order today, and honestly, that should have happened a long time ago because this just proved how unhinged they can get when things don't go their way. Part of me had a laugh at the circus of it all, but I won't lie, it was also terrifying. So I'm doing everything I can to cut this pair out of my life for good. And soon I'm moving into a new apartment because now any address my ex knows just doesn't feel safe anymore. I moved into a new apartment, and luckily Jason has no clue where I'm living now. I also managed to get a restraining order, and officially I have full custody of my daughter. These past few weeks have been really stressful, but thankfully I've been able to keep my sanity and finally get out of this ridiculous mess. I have no idea what Jason and Tiffany are up to these days, but I told all my friends I never want to hear anything about them again, and asked them not to share anything about me with those two either. The last few weeks were super tense because Jason kept blowing up my phone from different numbers. He'd go quiet for a bit and then pop back up, and Tiffany was out there spreading nasty rumors about me. I'm pretty sure that perfect little duo was doing everything they could to destroy me, but nothing worked. My daughter's doing great, and so am I. And honestly, that's all that really matters to me. I am her whole family, and she's mine. So that's the end of the story for now. After everything that's happened, you've got to admit, from a mom's perspective, how well the American legal system works when it comes to getting a restraining order like that. Because seriously, if I put myself in a mom's shoes, I'd be terrified of people this unstable too. But looking at it from the legal side, the question is still up for debate. Should a dad be allowed even one visit a month with his kid? Because aside from that crazy scene on the street and the fact that he was gone for 8 months, which makes sense since he left for another woman who wouldn't let him see her, it seems like he could see his daughter if she wanted to. I don't know, what do you think? Let's talk about it in the comments.